Hey, good day. This is Mr. Morales. I'm going to go over last Friday's quiz on parallel and perpendicular lines. Now, the first four questions were basically just recitations of the popular formulas we've used so far this year. So in order from the beginning to the fourth, our slope formula. Our slope formula is given to us by the variable m, and you get it by subtracting the two y values you have divided by the two x values you have. In other words, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Second question, identify the formula for slope-intercept form. That one's easy. Slope-intercept form is always the one that begins with y equals mx plus b, where you have your slope and y-intercept included automatically in the form, hence the name slope-intercept form. Next is standard form. Standard form is when you have your x's and your y's on the same side of the equal sign with a single constant at the end. So that is standard form. And then next we have is point slope form. Point slope is the formula you use when you have a single point. You subtract y minus y1 equal to the slope times x minus your x value in that given point and slope. So those are the first four for you right there. That's at least a minimum of a grade of 40. Now continuing on. Number 5. We are asked to find three things. The zero, which was explained to you to be the same thing as your x-intercept. That's the first mark we want, or the first notation. And then we want the slope, which is otherwise known as m. And then we want the y-intercept. All pretty easy to find from the graph alone. So the zero, that's this point right here that my graph hits the x-axis. That is between, let's see, we have 0, -1, -2, and -3. So your x-intercept was any number between -2 and -3. So for example, if you put -2.5 or -2 point something, I would have taken it. The slope now is the rise over the run. We know that we're going to have a negative slope because it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. So it goes down 6 points, and then it jumps over to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a slope of -6/4, which reduces to -3/2. So there's our slope there. Now we need our y-intercept. That's wherever our line crosses the y-axis, which is down here at -1, 2, 3, 4. So our y-intercept is at -4, or you could have said at coordinates 0, -4, and that would have been acceptable as well. Now let's get on to the actual equations. In number 6, we are asked to use the point slope form to write the equation of the line from the given information. So we're going to use point slope form. Point slope is y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. We're given x1 of -4, y1 of 6, and our slope m is -3/4. So first step is the formula. Second step is the substitution. Y minus 6 equals -3/4 times x minus -4. I notice I have a double negative in my parentheses over here, so I'll change that to plus positive. Now I'm going to leave the left side alone and distribute the right side. -3/4 times x is -3/4 x. -3/4 times +4. -3/4 times a +4, or 4 over 1, gives me -12, which is an equal sign right there, equals -12 over 4, which is -3. So I have a -3 here at the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 6 to both sides here and here. And my final answer turns out to be y equals -3/4 x. I take -3, I'm going to add 6, and I end up with +3. So there is my first answer. The biggest issue I saw was when people had to multiply this number times our second number over here. I've seen a lot of issues with that. You have calculators, so there shouldn't be any reason why you got that part wrong. For now, 7, 8, 9, 10, we're asked to find the equations based on the parameters given. Our first parameter given is that we want a line that's going to be parallel to this equation right here. Let me break down this equation I have. My slope is whatever's next to the x, in this case, a +1. And my y-intercept, well, I really don't care about the y-intercept, so I'll just use the slope. My slope is 1. So my new equation will have a slope of 1 and has to go through this x and this y point. So if I use point slope form, which you should have done, I'll begin with the formula y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. Substitution comes next, so you should have y minus 3 equals our slope, which is 1, times x minus x1, which is 2. I'll go ahead and distribute. I get y minus 3 equals 1 times x is x, 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Now to get the y by itself, all I have to do is add 3 to the left side and 3 to the right side, and I get y equals x. Negative 2 plus a positive 3 is a positive 1. So I get y equals x plus 1 from my equation. I have the same slope, which I should for parallel lines, but with different y-intercepts, and that makes sense. Moving on to number 8. Same thing again, but now they give me my equation in standard form. This is my, so I have it in ax plus by equals c form. In order to get the slope in standard form, you take the opposite of your a value and you put it over b. In this case, my a value is a positive 2, which will turn to a negative 2, and my b value is the 3 over here. So my slope I'm going to use for a parallel line is negative 2/3. There's my slope. Here's my point x and my point y. So I'll go ahead and use point slope form. I'll go ahead and write everything over here on the right-hand side. Y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. Begin the formula. Substitute now. I get y minus my y1 is a negative 1. My slope I know is a negative 2/3 times x minus, and my x1 is a negative 6. I have a couple of double negatives here in the beginning and here in the parentheses. Now I'll leave the left-hand side alone, and I'll distribute the right-hand side. Negative 2/3 times x is negative 2/3 x. Negative 2/3 times a positive 6 is going to end up giving me a positive, let's see, it's going to give me negative 12. Let's see, let me just do the work over here. Negative 2/3 times positive 6 over 1 gives me negative 12 over 3, which is a negative 4. In other words, a minus 4 right here at the end. Now I need to go ahead and get y by itself. I'll do that by subtracting 1 from both sides. And I end up with the equation y equals negative 2/3 x. Negative 4 minus 1 more is a negative 5. So minus 5. There's my equation with the same slope as my first line, right here, over here, but with different y-intercepts. Now my next two have to do with perpendicular lines. So let's go ahead and just dive right into that one. For my next line, it is already in slope intercept form. So my slope is m, which is 2 over 1. I need to make it perpendicular, which means I have to flip and change it. So if I do that, whoops, my change didn't come out. There we go. Flip and change. So my new slope then will be 1 over 2 negative. This is the slope I'm going to use. Here's my x1. Here's my y1. I'll put those into the formula. First, I'll write the formula. Y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. I'll substitute in my values. Y minus 8 equals my slope, negative 1/2, times x minus a negative 2. I have a double negative I need to take care of. I have y minus 8 on the left, which I'll leave alone. I'll distribute negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Negative half of positive 2 is negative 1. Now I need to go ahead and get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And the final answer I get when I do that is y equals the negative 1/2 x slope that I have. Negative 1 plus 8 gives me a positive 7. And then my final problem on the very bottom. Number 10. They give it to me in standard form, so I have 1x plus 4y equals 8. That's my a, that's my b, there's my c. To get the slope in standard form, it's negative a over b. Well, a here is a positive 1, so it becomes a negative 1 over my b is a positive 4. There's my original slope, but I need to make it perpendicular, which means I have to flip, and then I have to change the sign of this slope. So if I flip it, I get 4 over negative 1. If I change its sign, it just becomes positive 4 over 1. Here's the slope I'm going to use. Here's my x1. Here's my y1. So on the right-hand side over here, I have the formula. Y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. After that, I go ahead and substitute my values. y minus negative 11 equals my new slope of 4, or 4 over 1, times x minus my x1 value, which is negative 2. Double negative, I have y plus 11 on the left. Distribution, I have 4x. 4 times positive 2 would be positive 8. Now I subtract 11 from both sides. And I get y equals 4x. 8 minus 11 is a negative 3. So I get 4x minus 3. Those are the solutions to the quiz. I hope you realize where your mistakes were so you can work on them for the next time you see these types of problems. Best of luck, guys.